Imagine one day you go to your house and there's a kid waiting for you at your front door. And this kid is saying, "Hey, I'm your son." I don't believe it. I've never seen this kid once in my life. And now he's telling me he's going to sue me for all these years of neglect that I apparently put him through by not having him in my life. Guys, today was a crazy story. Let me tell you about it from the beginning. Hey guys, so something strange happened to me a couple days ago and I need a place to vent. It's not like I can discuss this with someone close to me. Well, why, read on. I'm sure you guys will understand. This happened a week after New Year's. There I was at my home with my wife and my 2-year-old baby girl, comfortably enjoying the early days of a new year, when I heard the doorbell ring. When I opened up the door, there was a thin, tall boy, almost my height, maybe a little taller, with dark skin, big ears, and very short hair. I sensed something familiar about him, but he did not leave me puzzled for long because all at once he asked me my name. Well, when I told him my name, he said nothing and quietly handed me papers. It was a legal document that said the boy was apparently my son, and that I was being sued for parental neglect for 18 years of abandonment. If you think that's absurd, well, you're not alone. You should have seen the look on my face. I told the boy, suspecting that maybe there's a mistake. However, the boy seemed to be too sure and began explaining to me about his mother, a woman I dated when I was young. And that's the part that left me quite disturbed. And it was because I had indeed dated her. It just wasn't for a very long time, and that's a story that goes back, I think, to my high school years. I met Martha through friends of friends, and she was not at my high school, but another close to mine. We met at a party and dated for about 2 months, and it was not something very serious. It was a few kisses here, a few parties there, and stopped dating as suddenly we had started dating because she moved. She never told me why she moved away or even let me know that we were broken up. She just moved and our relationship sort of fell away, and I never knew why. That was before social networks, and frankly, I had no intention of looking for her again after all that time. It was like 2 decades ago or so, and, well, when cell phones were still very new and we did not used to communicate that much. It strikes me as odd that she had gotten pregnant and never even tried to contact me, and now her kid is coming around telling me that I was an absentee father his whole life. The conversation may seem lighthearted, but I would not be writing here if it were in fact a very serious matter. So we invited the boy in, not without a lot of mistrust. You know, a boy saying he's your lost son can be a very big shock, and even more so when the news he was bringing. He was very serious, almost upset. He confessed to me that he had been waiting for this day for a long time. He had been with his mother for years, but she died when he was 8, and he was left in the care of his aunts and uncles, not knowing the truth about his father until he was 18. Well, he's not really of age, but in 3 months he will be. Only he's suing me for neglect and abandonment, which is, factually incorrect. First, I told him that I was sorry for his mother's situation, but she was the one who ghosted me first at the time. And although I did not show any effort to look for her, had I known her condition, I would have done everything possible to be by her side. Or at least take responsibility for him. You know, I'm very responsible, and I decided not to have my first baby until an adult age. When I knew I didn't have to worry about a house, a car, or even a wife. Well, my wife Lydia was in shock. I admit she got a little upset, although she took it much more calmly than one would expect. She was a bit angry at first and did not want to believe anything I said, but then she calmed down, and after all the years we've been together, she knew that my side of the story was correct. The boy, whom I'd only refer to as boy or the boy, was quite stoic, repeating over and over again that we should appear in front of his lawyers to determine the case and the terms of the lawsuit. So I asked him if he thought I was simply going to do as he said, since it was apparent on the surface that the matter was purely a matter of misunderstanding. Still, unlike my wife, he did not calm down or want to believe anything I said. He was adamant that he wanted to sue me for the neglect that he received from me all these years. No matter what I said or how I explained, it was like my words were falling on deaf ears.
And although it sounds very strange to admit, well, the meeting is in 4 days and that makes me very nervous. I don't know what to think because if this problem escalates, I might lose because of things that, well, no, impossible. I have everything going for me because I know that deep down I didn't do anything wrong. I have a lot of sympathy with Martha for her death, but I'm still a little upset about her hiding the truth. And who knows how many lies that she may have fed the boy to treat his father like that. I know he didn't know about me, but in the meantime, that could have told him that his father was a loser, a liar, or a irresponsible man for not being there for him. Wow, it doesn't feel very good to say all this. I mean, having a child you have not since seen ever would be a gigantic shock for anyone, right? Now, I can't look at my little girl without thinking that she would go a lifetime without knowing her father and trying to get by with just her mom. It almost brings tears to my eyes, but this is no time to sit around. I'll look for good lawyers who can help me get off easy. I discussed this with one of my few close friends and told me, bro, you have such a good alibi. You can get a third-rate lawyer and the jury will still see that you're right on this. And that's something I believe too, if I'm honest with you guys. I don't think I'm in a position to tell this to my parents. They've always seen me as a good person, and I feel that because of their rage, they won't have the same kind of consideration for me as my wife. They'll say something like, how is it possible that you would abandon your son? And if I tell them that I did not know of his existence, they will say something like I should have been more careful every time I had relations with a woman, even though it was not my fault that she stopped communicating with me. When the boy told me about Martha, he told me that she was not really a talker, which watched my memories just matched of hers, and that while she tried to be a good role model for a mother, still, she lacked a male figure affecting her a lot, and it showed. The boy's gaze was sharp, and he looked like one of those people who said that if he met the guy who abandoned them, first he would punch him in the face, and then he would ask explanations later. I tried to be nice to him, but he was very surly in everything that I said to him. It wasn't until my wife offered him a cup of coffee that he was more or less tame. I resent the situation with Martha and that she has lied to the boy all his life. Now, someone has an unfound resentment towards me for something that I didn't even do. And the worst part is now this will change everything. I now suddenly have a teenage son that I wasn't prepared for at all. We're talking birthdays that weren't celebrated. Moments that were never shared in a relationship that has to be formed from scratch with somebody who isn't prone to it. Because whether I want to or not, I now have a son, and I'll have to watch over him. Well, I'll give you guys a further update after the first meeting with the lawyer, and if all goes well, I hope it'll be the only that needs to be done. I'm not against the kid, I just feel he's a little confused, and that's it. If any of you have any advice or suggestions for me, please let me know. I'm kinda desperate at the moment. Well, I'll update you guys in a bit. Update number 1. Hey guys. Well, I'm back with an update as promised, and I just got back from the hearing with the boy. I'd like to say that it went well, but I'd be lying through my teeth. I was nervous to see the boy with a group of high-caliber lawyers. They tell me among them was his own uncle, Martha's brother. I went to my trusted lawyer, and he told me that this scene was an exaggeration on the boy's part. I had the upper hand, but the fact that he would go for that far was simply inconceivable. At one point he told me this boy does not only hate you, he wants to destroy you completely. Something that did not give me much encouragement. Well, it all started on, of course, the subject of abandonment. And I found it quite strange when, as evidence, several alleged messages that Martha was sending me about the boy were shown. Messages both on the phone and on social networks, as well as mail. Mails? What mails? I didn't understand anything that was going on, and I never received any of the letters despite them having my address. I had to listen to heartbreaking narratives of a woman pleading for me to come back, right into her life that I never heard from her. Well, they read some of the letters saying that she was desperate to meet me and talk about his kid, and they received the letters back after never delivering them. If there was so much trouble with that, why didn't she visit me back then? When we asked that, they said that she did not have enough money to take a trip back to the city. I claimed that I never knew of the existence of such correspondence or attempted communication, so I could not blame for that at all. However, because of the lack of evidence I had from my high school days after the communication I had at the time with Martha, it was difficult for me to corroborate the facts that I did not abandon her. But ironically, nobody was refuting the fact that I may not have even been with her in the first place. I've been reading the comments left since my first writing, and I feel like it's something I should apply. A DNA test. I admit I feel very foolish for not thinking of that at the time. I had so many things on my plate, it was hard to pay attention to anything else, and even if it was something positive. There'll be a second hearing in just under 2 weeks, so I'll be bringing you the new update by then. I'm going to apply the DNA test to see if it's feasible. The document may say one thing, but blood never lies. And I have the idea of leaving everything paid for at a hematology center so that by giving the option, something could be advanced. I'll also try to bring up the idea before the next hearing, so as not to waste time in a boring conversation. I just don't know if the boy is going to open to it. Until next time. Update number 2. Hey everyone, so it's been a little over a week since I last updated, and a lot has happened, but first 1,000 thanks for the DNA test suggestion. In the end, it did prove to be something quite feasible, progress in the case last week. Many of you suggested in the comments, and I asked my lawyer if we could use it, and so it worked. The only problem is that the boy now does not want to cooperate in it. Well, the reason? He's terrified of needles, yeah, you're not reading it wrong. The boy was willing to take his own father to court for negligence, knowing he's supremely wrong about everything, and yet he doesn't want to cooperate on this. I smell a rat's nest. And now I'll need to reschedule a new meeting. I floated the idea at the hearing, but he all at once started sweating and talking to his lawyers about how he must avoid this at once. Of course, I countered by saying that the DNA test could well be done with some other element, perhaps with saliva, but still he did not want to cooperate with the investigation, saying he doesn't like physical touch. Even if he could take the sample for the test by himself, it was a bit annoying because it delayed everything to needing a new hearing. This is taking time and money, and I've been trying to talk to the lawyers on both sides to see if the process can be expedited. Even the judges in this case want to help me, or at least that's my perception. Since everything that boy does, the judges always refutes it. He's a young kid, and I'm sure they all haven't stopped considering the option of it being a scam. But if there was one thing that bothered me the most about all this, it was a situation that happened with my mom. She was always in favor of me taking care of the boy when she first heard of it, not understanding that he was the one who had been the problem with me. Anyways, she contacted him and started talking to him. He thought that she went there just to get me out of the situation, but I think it got worse. He said several things to my mother, who he claims is his grandmother, telling her that she did not know how to raise me, and that regardless of what the outcome of the dispute would be, he would not consider himself part of our family, and that he would use the money so that he could form his path by going to college. Out of the blue, I now have to worry about paying for college before my 40s, and maybe against my will. I would like to know your perspective on all this. I'm sure many will say something like threaten him with outside factors or steal a DNA sample from him, but that would just be making him throw a counterclaim at me with the purest, I did not consent to this test, and then it's going to be worse for me. Update number 3. Hey guys, well, it's actually been a month, and I think the longest month of my life since I last updated because of the boy. Since the last note, it's been exactly 30 days in which I've wanted all of this to be over and done with. But there was always a but or an excuse on his part. The first week he was coincidentally ill, so the DNA sample could not be taken, and that was already exasperating us. In the end, against his will, the court decided that it had been proven that he and I were indeed related. So, as if that wasn't enough, he was sent for a blood test. Well, his lawyer appealed, but it wasn't enough. Now, this is the funny part, because whether it was a lie or not, he was afraid of needles. and I'm told that in the lab the boy begged and was exasperated when he saw how they approached him with a needle just to take the sample. I'm told that it was not easy at all, as he put up a lot of resistance, losing the little seriousness he was trying to convey with the lawsuit, and the court judge was already getting exasperated, so it was said that he should give the results as soon as possible. But after many irregular events within the taking of the results, the process took time. The irregular events were certain bribes and blackmails that the boy went so far as to make, to some of the laboratory employees, so they would alter the results of the test. All of this was revealed once we were in what was the last of the meetings, where the final verdict was announced. The boy arrived late, and he arrived quite shaken, as if he had just come out of a funeral. When questioned about this, he said that his dog had died, so he was in no condition to participate in the meeting that day. The judge considered this too informal to treat as serious, so he proceeded to reveal the results. Everything went in my favor, as it came out that indeed the boy and I did not have at all a blood relation. My wife was present, and I noticed her crying, perhaps in relief, but the boy's expression was worse. He started to make a fuss in the middle of the meeting, expressing that this was wrong, and at one point came to confess that the whole bribery thing. See, apparently, he had gone into debt to keep it all in his favor, but the trick did not quite work. Now, the verdict, I'm not entirely proud about this part though, guys, but considered at first dropping the lawsuit against me and covering my fees for all the time spent in the meetings, but then I decided to do something more abrupt, to fight back. I told my lawyers to put pressure on him to pay the damages for emotional effects, which were going to be substantial. Not enough to send him to jail if he did not pay them, but not humble. Many, including my wife, looked at me with a bit of an oddity, because they felt that I had exaggerated this punishment, but it was necessary just to take into account the emotional damage that this child has caused me and my family. So the sentence was to pay $3,500, which would be difficult for him to get, and even more with his current debts. And here we are. Yesterday was the final trial, and the sentence was passed. So we can only wait to see how the boy will react to the coming days. Update number 4. This is the final update of the story. It's been 2.5 weeks, guys. 2.5 weeks. 20 days. And this has been somewhat calming, but not in a good way. My mother, as usual, has been talking to Martha's family. She's got the boy's contact, and I'm amazed at the detective power that this woman has, and gave me more information regarding the whole thing. This is all in the words of his brother, who did not know much of what happened and felt very sorry for the boy's attitude. It turns out that after we broke up, Martha had a new boyfriend in her new town, and out of that the boy was born. The problem is that the real father ran off, and never showed up to take responsibility. He did talk about me, but not for what the boy said. He knew that I had dated his mom, but that we separated a long time ago, and he just decided to look for me out of pure curiosity. And when he saw the life that I had, he conspired with his uncle, the lawyer, to swindle me, pretending to be my son with false records. This was quite serious, so it was decided to open up a new trial, this time for false documentation. It was the boy's lawyer's uncle who would receive the consequences of this, and the boy, being an accomplice, would end up in juvie because he's nearing the age of maturity. Well, unfortunately, we will have to spend his birthday there, so it is a more bitter ending than we thought. I appreciate the comments that have been left to me regarding this story, good and bad, and the truth is that I could not control a lot of, the things that happened. But at least I was able to make one last move, which was to talk to the boy. I told him that I was very disappointed in the kind of person Martha's son ended up being. The conversation was bitter, and I could tell the boy hated me. But I told him it was all his fault. He had clipped his wings to fly, but he kept repeating that deep down he wanted me to be his father because at least then, quote, he would have somebody to look back on, and that made me feel pretty bad. But justice had to be upheld. And the guy did have very bad intentions, so I told him that paying is his punishment. I could at least help him a little to get a job and get to manage to pay all the emotional reparations. He was not friendly about this, and in fact he told me that I had better leave before he lost his patience. Well, that did surprise me, and I left before it escalated. It's worth mentioning that the job offer I gave him is no longer available. I talked to the family that raised him, and they said that they would help him cover things up. But it would be difficult things to do without the lawyer uncle, who I forgot to mention is now behind bars. Yeah, it turns out this had not been the only case that he had forged, and it had uncovered a whole pot of illegal documents that he had behind him. This was the uncle most attached to the boy, and now I understand where he got this way from. However, I again thank everybody for the support I got in the comments of my story. That's it. Top 2 comments from the final update. Comment number 1 is a positive outlook that says OP almost lost more than just his money. Like his credibility, his wife, the whole family's trust that he was already used to, and for all a boy who claimed to be his son. But in the end, things were able to follow their environment thanks to going by the rules, and if these rules that put the scammers where they deserve to be. You could even say that thanks to this whole situation, OP will now be able to have one more extra income in the future to be able to raise her daughter properly. I mean, what did surprise me was that many of his acquaintances began to view him so negatively in the beginning, knowing that it was not even his fault. Comment number 2 with a negative outlook. OP was not to blame for the lack of communication with Martha years ago, but it would be good for a person to do a little follow-up on those that they're with just to avoid this. You know, with social networks now, it's so easy to keep in touch, as long as the other person accepts the invitation. I feel that the revenge against the boy was also a bit excessive. It seems cruel to me, even for having been the one who caused it all. Now, the boy will have to learn to value life a little more at such a young age, looking for a job so he can clean up the mess he got himself into by being so greedy.
Alright guys, this was a wild story. I want to know from you in the comment section down below, what do you think of the young boy turning down the job that OP tried to offer? I want to hear a little insight from what you thought about that down below. Guys, thank you for joining me today. Today's story was a little different, a little weird, a little crazy. Let me know what you thought about it. And hey, if you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every single day. I hope you enjoyed it once again. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic day. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.